So the last time I made a video about Tesla and Elon Musk, I started by calling Musk a fraud, which was not a brave thing to do because it was self-evident to anyone paying attention that his ridiculous tweet pretending he had funding secured to take Tesla private was in technical terms complete bullshit. And in typical Musk fashion, he let his ego get in the way and wound up with a worse deal than the SEC initially offered. The New York Times reported on the timeline. Securities and Exchange Commission officials were understandably taken back on Thursday morning when Tesla's board and its chairman, Elon Musk, abruptly pulled out of a carefully crafted settlement. In response, the SEC accused Musk of securities fraud. The board further defied regulators, issuing a provocative statement saying that the directors were fully confident in Elon, his integrity, and his leadership of the company. Apparently Musk, like the egomaniac that he is, gave the board an ultimatum, threatening to resign if the company went through with the settlement, in addition to demanding that the board publicly extol his integrity. And so the board caved and gave Elon his rattle back. The next day, Tesla's lawyers were back at the SEC, grovelling for a second chance with Mr. Musk's grudging approval. Quote, Mr. Musk's 48 hours of obstinance came at a significant price to him and the company. They had passed on Thursday's generous offer, and the SEC felt compelled to extract greater concessions. The ban on Mr. Musk serving as chairman went from 2 years to 3, and his fine doubled to $20 million. Tesla also paid a $20 million fine, and Mr. Musk agreed to personally buy the same amount in Tesla stock. The SEC is also requiring the company to add 2 independent directors and to elect an independent director as chairman. But none of that matters because Musk has delivered on his promise that Tesla would be both profitable and cash flow positive in the third quarter. Tesla reported GAAP net income of $312 million and free cash flow of $881 million for the third quarter. How did they do it? Well, they sold a lot more cars. Total deliveries in the third quarter were approximately 83,500 cars compared to 40,740 in the second quarter. Most of those, approximately 56,000, were Model 3s, which led to an 82% increase in automotive revenue compared to the second quarter and drove the bottom line result. Cause for celebration for the Tesla faithful, no doubt. Although surprisingly, while this feat was being accomplished, Musk told Recode in a recent interview that, quote, up until around September, we were really faced with we must solve this or we're going to die. Right in the midst of the first profitable quarter in 2 years. But then again, you should know by now to take anything Musk says with a mountain of salt. Now, as is standard practice, the official 10-Q is not filed until after the actual press release of results and conference call. And since the 10-Q came out, there have been some interesting revelations. For example, in the earnings press release before the 10-Q came out, Tesla said that they recorded $52 million in revenue from the sale of zero-emission or ZEV credits. What they didn't disclose, but we find out in the 10-Q, is that they recorded a further $137 million in non-ZEV credits for a total of $189.5 million. And these credits are almost all pure profit for Tesla, representing more than 60% of the $312 million net income reported. And it's worth noting that during the third quarter, Tesla sold its 200,000th car in the US, which is significant when it comes to buyers being eligible to receive federal income tax credits for purchasing electric vehicles. The full credit of $7,500 per car is available for the first 200,000 cars a manufacturer sells. In addition, the full credit is available for all cars sold in the same quarter the magic 200,000 is hit, and for the quarter after. So the full tax credit will be available to Tesla buyers through the fourth quarter, but from January 1st, buyers of Teslas in the US will receive just $3,750 until the end of the second quarter, when it will be cut to $1,875 for the rest of 2019, and thereafter disappears altogether. Now, there's a good argument to be made. Many Tesla buyers think your wealthy Silicon Valley types would have bought the car anyway, regardless of subsidies. But as Tesla transitions to producing lower cost models, as is their stated aim, this will become more of a factor as their increasing competition will be offering full tax credits. Also of interest was Tesla's disclosure around their accounts receivable. Receivables doubled from $570 million at the end of the second quarter to $1.15 million at the end of the third quarter. Now, of course, you would expect receivables to increase considerably given the jump in sales, although receivables increased significantly more in percentage terms. The CFO explained this on the October 24th conference call by stating the quarter ended on a weekend, so many car payments were delayed. But the 10Q later revealed that one entity represented 10% or more of our total accounts receivable. Now, often when one entity represents 10% or more of accounts receivable, the entity is named. Not so in this case. Tesla later clarified on Saturday, November 3rd, that a large receivable from one of its partner banks for loans issued to US customers is the 10% entity noted in the 10Q. And almost all of this receivable was cleared in the first few days of Q4. Move along, nothing to see here then. Also interesting was Tesla's decision to reclassify $73 million of finished goods inventory as property, plant and equipment because, quote, we made the decision to utilize some of our fleet cars as service loaners on a long-term basis. Now, if you add that back to finished goods inventory, you get $1.73 billion, slightly higher than Q2 by about $8 million, which is odd given that Tesla delivered more cars than it produced in Q3, so you would expect finished goods at the end of the quarter to be lower than the previous quarter, not higher. Warranty expenses for Q3 was also a little confusing. In the second quarter, the warranty expenses amounted to about $2,910 per car, which, as you can see here, was significantly higher than in previous periods. However, in Q3, it dropped back to $2,242 per vehicle delivered. Tesla said that the provision should be lower for cheaper cars like the Model 3, and since 2/3 of cars sold in the third quarter were Model 3s, this sounds plausible enough. But in the second quarter, 45% of cars delivered were Model 3s, and the warranty cost per car was much higher than the previous periods when Model 3 production was significantly lower. If the current quarter is correct, why was Q2 warranty cost per car so much higher? Now, apart from the skyrocketing sales, there is also a skyrocketing number of lawsuits against Tesla. According to Plainsight, there are 324 lawsuits in their database and growing exponentially by the month. Last week, we learned about Tesla's policy of ignoring injured workers on the job. When a worker gets smashed by a car part on Tesla's factory floor, medical staff are forbidden from calling 911 without permission. The electric car makers contract doctors rarely grant it, instead often insisting that seriously injured workers, including one who severed the top of a finger, be sent to the emergency room in a lift. Injured employees have been systematically sent back to the production line to work through their pain with no modifications, according to former clinic employees, Tesla factory workers, and medical records. Some could barely walk. The goal of the clinic was to keep as many patients off the books as possible, said Anna Watson, a physician assistant who worked at Tesla's medical clinic for 3 weeks in August. The way they were implementing it was very out of control, said Watson, who was fired in August after she raised her concerns. Every company that I've worked at is motivated to keep things not recordable, but I've never seen anybody do it at the expense of treating the patient. And if you think this is some type of beat-up, Plainsight, via a California Public Records Act request, shows that the number of labour complaints received in 2018 has skyrocketed from 6 in 2016 to 39 in 2017 to 70 in 2018, with 2 months to go. And speaking of legal matters, we found out that earlier this month that both the SEC and the Department of Justice have subpoenaed Tesla over production forecasts for the Model 3 made last year. Remember that Musk famously claimed that Tesla would be producing 5,000 Model 3s a week by the end of 2017, a target they didn't hit until 6 months later. Remember also that a year ago a group of shareholders sued the company in federal court alleging that it made false statements about Model 3 production and misled investors. The original complaint was dismissed but was refiled in September. And now there are more lawsuits surfacing over the same issue. This one is from a pension fund on behalf of some holders of the $1.8 billion in notes expiring in 2025. Oh, and let's not forget about last week's story about a former Tesla employee charged with an embezzlement scheme at Tesla. Salil Perulika allegedly used his role as an employee in the global supply management group at Tesla to initiate a scheme wherein he diverted money owed to one Tesla supplier and caused it to be paid to another supplier. In sum, Perulika allegedly embezzled approximately $9.3 million. Doesn't say much for your accounting controls, but then again, when most of your accounting department has been turned over in recent years, is it really any surprise? But if you are a bull, none of this matters. It doesn't matter that the CEO committed securities fraud. It doesn't matter that there is exponential growth in labor complaints and lawsuits at the company. And I'm guessing it doesn't matter that the VP of Tesla's legal team just quit, obviously not for a lack of work. Oh, and never mind that Tesla has now quietly removed the full self-driving feature from the Model 3 it had been charging people $3,000 for, but never worked because it didn't exist. It only affects about 35,000 Tesla owners that collectively ponied up about $105 million for the feature. But hey, don't take it from me, take it from Steve Wozniak.
But Tesla has no autopilot. They call it beta. Wait, I'm sorry. What car company puts out a feature and calls it beta? That doesn't count. Tesla makes so many mistakes. It really convinced me that autopiloting and auto-steering car driving itself is not going to happen. It's going to be. It can help you in certain ways, but boy, you're almost more subject in a Tesla these days to being aware and watching the road than you used to. Because if you lapse, that's when those accidents happen to kill people.
You bought a Tesla because you were hopeful that they were going to push further into autonomous driving.
You are correct. I felt that I want to be a part of this lead into autonomous driving. I wanted to be a part of that crowd. And I believed it, and I kept upgrading my Tesla to one that would have a camera and radar, and then one that would have 8 cameras and radar because the first one would never do it. And then I gave up, and I said, it's really not going to happen.
You said a really interesting thing that I read. I wanted to read for our viewers and have you react to it. And this is about Elon Musk. You said, quote, "I've just been fed too many hopeful wishes and lies about the future, and I've given up on Tesla and Elon Musk, believing anything they say." That's pretty harsh.
I don't like it when I feel duped.
And don't worry about the lack of accounting transparency. Besides, according to Tesla, less than 20% of the 455,000 pre-orders have been cancelled. But have they got their money back? Here's 5 lawsuits, again catalogued by Plainsight, of customers suing Tesla for deposits ranging from $2,500 to $5,000. And how many others are there that haven't received a refund yet that haven't filed a lawsuit? Who knows? Transparency is not exactly Tesla's strong suit. The bullish case seems to be that none of these issues detract from the fact that Tesla is making and selling more cars. And bears like me that continue to be short can't really argue with that. They are making and selling more cars, even if the quality of those cars is questionable. Remember, it was reported that Model 3 production had a first-pass yield of just 14% compared to good auto plants that run at about 80%. Even the former Tesla cheerleaders Electrek are reporting Model 3s are having problems in cold weather. And Twitter is full of stories about bizarre panel gaps, car wash water leaks, even complete system failures. But this doesn't faze the bulls. It's onwards and upwards. And perhaps they're right. Perhaps Tesla can spend just $2.5 to $3 billion on capex next year and don't need to raise capital to fund the new Roadster, the Model Y, a Semi, a pickup truck, and the Chinese Gigafactory, and pay down about $1 billion worth of debt in the first quarter. They can fund all that out of their newfound free cash flow fountain. Or can they? Was the third quarter, as David Einhorn suggested, as good as it gets for Tesla? I'm sure we'll find out in due course. Until then, I'll see you next time.